So one of the things I did was get myself into some women's Facebook groups and ask them what was going on.
Welcome, Francesca Charlton, the editor of the Martial Mindset magazine. Is that correct? Because
Yep.
I'm terrible with names. I can't
Oh,
remember for anything.
sure. Yeah, Budo mindset.
Budo Mindset, that's the one.
The name that spontaneously came a while ago and it just resonated. So, I couldn't resist it. It works.
Oh, cool. So you're the originator and creator of the magazine. What took you that what took you that road? And my apologies. Today seems to be the my English abandoned me.
Yeah,
So
no, that's cool. That's cool. Let's see if mine holds out. Hopefully it'll be all right. Well, basically, I now as I get older have realized that I if I want to live in a particular world, it's up to me to create it. And so instead of complaining about the sort of lack of existence of something or something I'd like to experience or read in this case, or the new town I live in now, I get busy creating the world I want to live in. And I have discovered no one's going to give that to you. No one's going to create it for you. No one can read your mind. That's the other thing. We could kind of could get all upset, but actually, once you realize that people aren't mind readers and they have no idea what they want, and even if they could read your mind, they often don't have the capacity to do it.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the reasons it came about. And partly also about it came about through frustration that I think probably like you, Sensei, I know very well that martial arts has way, way more to offer than gets published in martial arts magazines. Um, and that's the conversation that I wanted to crack open. And so it came a little bit out of frustration. There is, what was really one of my favorite martial arts magazines for absolutely years, when I actually bothered to go through the entire collection. So up until, but before the magazine came out, there had only been two women on the front cover, and that frustrated me tremendously. From a woman's perspective, I don't feel that we were represented at all. And if we were or are represented, then it's from the man's world perspective. Um, and I found that very, very annoying. And then Yanti, one of my karate besties, Yanti Amos just said, "Well, what are you going to do about it then? You're going to open your own magazine?" I was like, "Yeah, actually, okay, I will." So, I immediately went and bought the web address, and then there was a lot of difficult family things going on at that time, so I didn't have the space or the time to do it because my eldest was so sick. And then I just cracked on, and in the understanding that I don't have the full story of what people want to hear and see and read also. So I've kept it deliberately um, over to the readers. And people have asked me, "Oh, what sort of articles are you looking for?" And I was like, "Well, that's entirely up to you. What do you want to say, and what would you like to read, or what do you want other people to know? Because I can't dictate that. I don't know what everybody wants." And that's really how it cracked open. So although on the web page I initially had some ideas of themes,
Mhm.
it created itself by the people that started writing articles. So that's kind of how it happened, really.
Cool. It's interesting you said about the female in martial arts. I had a series women in martial arts. We had a lot of interviews on the podcast. I think 2 years ago.
Mm.
So I spoke with all my friends who are the higher grade and running their own clubs.
Yeah.
What problems they facing? So I'm gonna have some questions to you, but let's start First, with your journey, how did you get involved in martial arts, and why did you choose karate?
Yeah, well, it's tragic actually how I got into it. My mother was in a very, very violent relationship at that time, and it was serious, a very, very bad situation. And I noticed after about, gosh, a year and a half, 2 years of being in this relationship, and he managed to isolate us. He'd managed to isolate her in terms of her not working anymore. We were really hemmed in and he had total control. That she started to, as best as I can describe it, as arm herself. And there were various things that she started to do to take control of the situation again. And one of them was at that time, I didn't fully understand why she'd done it. She just started karate.
Mhm.
There were a bunch of other activities which are probably for another conversation that worked also. But this particular one, let's see now. I think that she was her first grade, so I think she'd been training for 3 or 4 months. And
Mhm.
then he made a final attack, which is a very, very serious attack. He was strangling her. So she was on her back and he was trying to throttle her. In the process, a cup got broken, but something came over her in that attack that I believe karate gave her. And she managed to throw him off. He landed on the broken cup that got smashed in the process, got really badly cut up. Yes. I mean, he really, really deserved this. And we saw him once after that to collect his stuff, and she gave up karate. She didn't
Wow.
need it anymore, which just means to me she was arming herself. And
Mhm.
she just said, "Oh, Fran, I think you'd enjoy karate actually. It's just down at so and so. Why don't you pop along?" She gave me 30p because that's how much it cost back then. And that is how it started. And I stayed though. Um, I enjoyed the fact that my instructor said, um, now, if I hear any of you, and he'd always give a talk when a bunch of students came in, if I hear any of you using this outside of the dojo, you're out. That was the first thing. I really appreciated that, and it made me feel safe in a strange way. And it was the first thing in my life that I felt I was really good at. And I don't know
Mhm.
if it's because it just made me feel really good or if I was really good. It doesn't matter in my mind. They're sort of the same thing. And then the relationship began, and it lights me up. And I think that it today is the way that I process my life because I'm very empathic and intuitive,
Mhm.
and it's a lot to process. I think you understand exactly what I mean with the subjects of the work that you're doing. And it's not necessarily it makes me feel safe, but I think it processes it realigns my body and I need to do it. Yeah, it makes me feel good. So that's really how it started. That sense of joy made me feel good, and it was the first thing in my life. Um, sometimes when you perform that perfect technique and it's a
Mhm.
very elusive moment and you everything's aligned and there's that wow moment and it courses through the mind and the body and there's something just happens. So that's really how it started, and it was just in a small club in Warminster in Wiltshire, and that's how it began. Tragic to fantastic, I think.
Cool. Wow. Cool and not cool, right? Glad that your mom is okay, and glad that the attacker been put off from trying more, and karate
Mm,
had a little part of it. Um,
yeah.
so in that position, what do you think that the karate had what impact on your mental health in that journey? Because it must have been traumatic to be aware of seeing your mom being all the time in danger. Um,
Yeah.
I had a similar with my dad, although he never hit my mom, he never hit us, but because he was alcoholic, it was kind of more. verbal assaults, and kind of never being happy with us, and always have a complaint. The alcohol
Oh,
amplified that kind of nastiness. So how did that impact your mental health?
yeah. Well, I can definitely relate because I was raised in a family of bohemian artists that were pretty much all alcoholic and drug addicts. That was my world. And my father, who we left because of his drug addiction, I was about one. He died when I was very young through alcoholic abuse and drug addiction that basically turned into hepatitis and diabetes, So what I've seen has gone all the way. And you can sort of trundle through life and take something for granted. But when I look back at how my brothers and sisters responded to the almost the same stimuli, although unfortunately my mother's mental illness understandably got worse and worse. So she got worse. So they definitely had to deal with more because I left when I was 15. She kicked me out at 15 years old, so I was homeless young. Um, I think it offered a constant and going into a world where actually people weren't drug addicts, they weren't alcoholics, and they were relatively sane, like normal. We know there's no normal, but it was not that going on, not that level of mental health problems, illness, drug addiction, all that stuff that a child has to witness. So moving into a comforting space of normality was wonderful. It was amazing to see um, just how everyday people functioned. Say it could be an event, the typical karate barbecues after a competition or to celebrate the end of term. That people weren't kicking off, they weren't drinking to excess, they weren't rowing with each other, and they were treating each other just normally. And I really dug that, it meant a lot to me looking back, and a sense of relaxation could come about in those spaces. So I think there was that aspect of it. There was focusing on something that was bigger than me, or an aim. So I guess after a couple of years, competition was something that I really focused on very, very intensively as I discovered that, I could affect my world by training harder or better, by becoming an athlete, which I really counted myself as an athlete, but as at that time teenagers were not really, we didn't understand a lot about growth, platelets, muscle tissue connectivity, all this sort of stuff. So I wasn't, no one knew about that. And it made a massive difference. So although I would say I don't have the temperament for drug addiction or alcoholism, but I always had karate. So I don't know, but I can see how my brothers and sisters did coming out the same situation, and it's not good. They've really, really, really struggled, I would say, with mental health issues and addiction issues. And I haven't at all been interested in that world, even though it was completely there for me and open. So I would sometimes reassess and look back at how I've responded to my world. And my husband now, Peter, we've been together for 16 years. He said, I'm pretty sure you're okay because of your martial arts. I think so, as well as sort of saving my life physically on occasions, um, I think it's probably saved my life. And I don't believe now, having assessed over many years, I'm being dramatic about that. It saves lives. And that's my experience, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's very, very special, but I don't know how we keep people doing it so that they start to feel that effect as well. So I work very hard to make it now trauma informed and a safe space for people to come. I didn't always teach like that, but once I did my university degree and understood, you may have seen some of the articles I've putting out in research. I did it. I completely shifted my whole thought process about why people are training, what it can do for them, and the my specific approach to them as they come through the door.
Yeah, I investigated that as well. We got uh into the university. Unfortunately, that died down by inaction, I think, on the university side. There was some interest in doing research into that. So anybody listening from the university wants to do research, I've got a group that we can focus on. So I took the route of the anecdotal evidence and done the interviews with people who actually suffering with different mental health issues and disabilities and
Mm.
illnesses, how the karate impacted them over the 5 years period.
Mhm.
So we've got that as an interviews book, but it's not the solid evidence because I'm just assessing people who I know really.
Yeah, yeah.
But the coming back to the additions and addictions and stuff, um, my theory is that the people who coming from a home that there was an addition are conditioned to have their own addition. I see a lot of people who I know that come through like alcoholic family, drug abuse, are very prone to have their own addiction. And for
Yeah,
me, that addiction was sport, in particular
yeah.
karate and all the martial arts. So I think that my dad drinking, I don't drink for a very long
Mm.
time, and I haven't been drinking when I was younger either, just because I see what the results are then. But I think that something is in the gene that
Yeah.
attract us to have some form of addiction. Because if I stop doing martial arts, I feel really bad. What's your thoughts about it? Is that kind of working
Yeah,
theory?
yeah, I became quite perplexed that as my family saw me, by the way, my mother never ever came to see me train or compete. And my auntie only ever came to see me maybe at Bath once, which fascinated me. Then what I'm about to tell you next about their attitude about towards what I was doing. They were telling me I was addicted, obsessed, that it was bad for me, that I should leave, and I had a lot of pressure from them. And I was perplexed about this because I thought, well, this I think is good for me, and I think it's better for me than taking drugs and drinking. Um, I am a better version of what I considered was possibly going to be my potential self, could have been my
Mhm.
potential self. And so this perplexed me a lot. And I think martial arts is very entertaining for the possible addictive side of my personality. Um, I have to use everything that might some if we think my conclusion is about addiction, that it's about connection, people wanting to connect, and that if you don't get that through your family situation, there's a very high likelihood that you will move towards some form of addiction. If you have that chemical tendency in your body, um, need. That's complex. I think, there's a lot with brain, hormonal, and gut psychology mixed in with this. You're going to look for something that, let's say you're the sort of person that is on the spectrum, which I now suspect my entire family are, because my eldest is he's homeschooled. My youngest, sorry, he's homeschooled, and he's on the spectrum. He's like one of these high functioning autistic guys, like super intelligent. And if I would say on a bad day, he reminds me of some of my mother's behavior. But it is only picking, we could say it's picking fault, or we could say it's seeing the actual problems that get blown up and blown out of proportion because they catastrophize. I say they. What George tends to do, and I know my family tends to catastrophize the tiniest little thing. Now, in martial arts, you'll notice that there's a lot of people talking about the tiniest detail and really going into it. And it's actually very, very interesting. But to the outsider, somebody you could actually almost call it catastrophizing about this minutiae little detail that makes all the difference to physical movement, um, body alignment, efficiency of movement. And I think that it appeals to this mind if that is why the person is drawn to addiction. The other sense that I have is one of community. And I treat my karate peers as my family in maybe a bit of an imbalanced way, I've noticed. And again, this is perhaps out of what I was raised with. And I'm often surprised when it's not returned, and I'm like, you shouldn't be surprised. You're weird. You're welcoming people in as your family, but when people get it, the family aspect of martial arts, it's the best feeling of connection and family and support, especially the loyalty aspect that can come in, that, as we know, gets heavily abused as well. When the horrible politics come in. So when the loyalty issues come in, they get tested and you stick it out anyway. In my case, because I come from a very abusive family, so I stick around forever and a day. My sensei, my instructors, my family can completely kick the living daylights out of me, and I will probably still be there. Although I challenge myself a little bit on that fact now, because hopefully I've lived and learned that what is sick behavior and what doesn't deserve loyalty and what does deserve loyalty. It's complicated and there is a sort of replacement, but there's one really positive note I want to finish that on because it's very complex. My last teacher, my last mentor, he said to me, the thing about addiction is, and bringing yourself out of addiction is replacing a lower habit with a higher one. And that has given me permission to move forward with what I'm doing. Because although I'm not interested in drugs or alcohol, I just really never been into it at all. I think karate got me young before anything became a habit. I consider uh, karate, martial arts, a higher habit than the lower self-destructive ones, the self-harming ones, the easier ones. So yes, it's a higher habit in my mind, even though I have a knee injury right now that I'm working through, and I'm prepared to turn up today, seriously strap my leg up and put myself in harm's way, which you could argue is the same as taking a beer. Um, but I would prefer to strap myself up and keep building my levels of self-esteem on a path that has 98% been good for me than bad for me, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
long-winded answer, but I've considered these questions a lot and really deeply
Mhm.
questioned what the hell am I doing? Even thinking about going to training today when I'm just struggling with this knee issue right now. But I'm problem
Mm.
solving, how to move through this. And I believe I can. I know I can. I've done it before with injuries.
I'm sure you would be able to do it. So when you join the karate, you go through the ranks. When did you start noticing that uh, there is kind of and there's no way about it. There's a glass ceiling for a female to go in. Plus, the big drop off is my wife is a martial artist as well, but
Yeah.
she decided to give up because we had children. So obviously her body been not geared to do stuff after the pregnancy, then the second pregnancy, and
Mm.
now we're so busy that she chooses not to train because the kids are more important, so I can do my work, she have to do her work. But there is a glass ceiling for women to break through, and only few manage to do that?
Hmm. Really, I guess when I was in Sweden, I started to wonder what the hell was going on and why there were so few people, women, when I'd line up at the camps, I mean, like there would be one or two of us uh, women there, or maybe just me in a room of 60 or 70 people. And I was like, that's a bit weird. I don't understand what the hell's going on there. So kind of in that process, I was doing my research about health and well-being and karate and um, trying to figure out where the women were disappearing off to and what was happening and why in my club in Sweden we had 50-50, no problem. And I was like, well, that's weird too. Those stats are off. Um, the women are staying at my club, and for some reason, that's something to do with a woman leading the club. So I guess this was in sort of 2018, really, 17 maybe, that I started to think about it. So one of the things I did was get myself into some women's Facebook groups and ask them what was going on. And I assumed, honestly, it was to do with children, uh, you know, like everything, there's too much to do, not enough time. I assumed it was down to that because I'd noticed my friend Libby, I haven't spoken to her for years actually, she's with her husband, runs a skiff club in Scotland in Peterhead. Amazing, amazing club. And that she was two Dan ranks behind her husband, even though they started at the same age, same time as kids. And I just thought, oh man, having kids really knocks the ladies back. Perhaps that's the motivating force. And the surprising results from the questionnaires that I put out on the women's Facebook groups back then, soft tissue injuries. I thought, okay, not a whole bunch of other stuff. And it just kept, yeah, soft tissue injuries, soft tissue injuries. And now I'm 50 and my body has started to shift into menopause. I guess that's what's happening. Yeah, soft tissue injuries are a freaking nightmare. I've never experienced anything like it. I've had hip dysplasia my entire life, and I had an operation in 2019. So I had like slip disc 2 or 3 times a year. I thought I had a back problem. I didn't know it was because of the hip dysplasia continuously causing it. So once I had the operation, that cleared up. So I thought, okay, this is all right again. I don't have injuries in my back anymore. And I would heal really fast. But I'm struggling with this knee injury right now. And something weird is going on in the body. So there's this one thing, and there's another piece of interesting information. When I was in Sweden, I was talking to a woman police officer who she was telling me about the statistics within the police force in Sweden at least. And in Sweden, you need to remember that the women are basically, sorry for Swedish listeners, they'll probably know what I mean. Women basically run the place. They are the powerhouses behind the country, and nothing is not open for them to do. They will do all the jobs that the men do. I mean, it's amazing. And I was really surprised about this. So when it comes to police work, when they first join the forces as young ladies, they will be on the street just like the guys. But then after having children, and then they come back to work, they will very often take an office job because they don't want to hazard themselves anymore. And I also have to wonder if the woman martial artist doesn't want to hazard herself anymore. So again, I think it might be a little bit complex. There's a bunch of different things involved. But if you don't see women in leadership positions, like we haven't seen in martial arts, you don't even know it's an option. And I'm going to give you a bit of a devastating mini conversation. I won't mention her name because she might not want to be, but she's a UK instructor in her club. One of her girls was going for a grading. And this upset me so much. It was around about the same time. And she said to her instructor, "Are you going to be on the grading panel?" And she said, "No, I'm not. It's going to be," and they were all men. And the girl said, Why are there no women on the grading panel?" And it's like, well, how what are the young girls supposed to think if they don't see there's a future for them? They're probably not going to do it. Now I'm going to give you a new statistic which has just blown my mind yesterday. So you're aware of Yanti Amos Sensei? Yeah. And she is beginning the last 2 years to teach internationally. She is now on the sort of official for our summer camp with the WTKO. She's listed as one of the main instructors, and she has been for 2 or 3 years. This year we have, just do the stats on this just now, and there'll be a whole bunch more now in this next month registering for the camp, right? But 122 people are coming, and 50 of them are women at this point,
Oh, cool.
right?
Hmm.
And I'm thinking they see, uh, and I've been invited to teach this year as well, which is a real honor. They see now women taking their place, which is encourages women to stay. They'll see a way forward. Then there's another level of conversation that we have to have, which is the type of shit that, sorry, excuse my language, that Yanti is experiencing as a female instructor with high grade men in the room. That
Hmm.
is another conversation. And it's unbelievable the sorts of posturing going on that she is having to put up with. But we've never had that experience before as women. So this is
Hmm.
something that we then have to coach women to be able to put up with or deal with or um, armor them with the right strategy in those situations that they're going to experience. So I think when we see women in position of leadership, and the glass ceilings get removed, they'll just gradually see it. And this is part of the mission in a way that Yanti and I are on. This is going to fall down obviously really quickly because 50 women coming to a camp where we have 122 at the moment. That's amazing statistics. It's not 5% or 10%. It's something else.
Yeah, it's cool to see. I think because we're operating in two different karate worlds, so I'm more
Yep.
kind of practical, independent side. You are within the organization and kind of traditional approach. I think the statistics are a little bit different. I see much more women running the uh, practical martial arts clubs, grading higher grades, and
Mhm.
being more. It's kind of more like a freedom. You come in, you go in, you Krav Maga, you do this, you do that. Which I think the kind of Japanese way is much more based on the Japanese culture, which is
Mhm.
not the women's got her place at
Mhm.
home or
Mhm.
whatever. And I think that's kind of because as Europeans, we all want to be more Japanese than Japanese people. So it's kind of going in and translating like that. So it's nice to see that there are steps being taken for brave women like you to push that against it and actually go higher and do better.
We've got, I really think we have to. I've put it in my one of the articles in the print that we're going to print this month that actually what's been going on is against the law. And having spoken to I have a great one of my best friends. She's a gynecological surgeon. She's just retiring. She's coming, up to retirement years now. So she was part of the new wave of surgeons being qualified, women being qualified, and they were having to come total glass ceiling problem, massive problems with misogyny and these male medical specialists. They irritated the hell out of me when I was a kid, when I was just happened to be at hospitals. It's the typical male surgeon sort of wandering around with his clipboard in this gaggle of women and students behind him, this sort of thing. So they came in, but when they were qualifying, they decided as a group of women to have absolutely nothing to do with misogyny and to turn their backs on it openly and deliberately. And she was saying, so this was 30 years ago, that one of the job interviews that she went to, um, the surgeon just right there in the interview said, I really have no idea why you want to become a surgeon. You're basically not going to have any opportunity to become that skilled or good at it because you're going to be having children shortly and we won't see you again. To which, she was fuming and then just left and withdrew her application to work with this chap. And then it gradually took women doing that across the board. This would be in the UK, and then giving jobs to women quite deliberately. Knew that they were good enough for the work, but deliberately giving jobs to women so that they could come up through. And then you have the realization, oh, women are actually really good at this. In some cases, better. But the same thing happened in business, as far as I know. There was, I don't, the name, the lady escapes me now. She's a big businesswoman in the UK. I really wanted to go and see her speak, but she was at that phase where you would have the token gesture woman on the board, right? These big businesses. But they started to realize, oh, actually, women are really good at this. I would say in Aikido, I did 10 years of Aikido. I would say technically, women are better at Aikido quicker because they were, certainly during my time, I was the only woman. You have to be technically better because you don't have the strength. You have no opportunity to use brute force. So your timing, your footwork, body positioning in terms of below their hip height, everything that you were doing, stepping to create distance had to be spot on because you didn't have the power. And we all used to play in terms of resist if we could. So, and Friday nights were always, well, let's see if this shit works. And it would usually end up in groundwork on the floor, basically. So I understood really early, and I was lucky to have some great instructors that treated me just like everybody else, that we had to be technically better. And this is a conversation I think that goes through all industries. Um, Even when it comes to job applications, that I once I could not understand why I was not getting this job. I was so overqualified for it. I went to speak to the HR agency about it. This was in Sweden as well, where the women, as I said, are very hardcore. And he said, for goodness sake, you've got to start thinking like a man. And I really don't mean to be rude, but this was from a guy. He said, okay, so you're a breathwork coach, yeah. So you do yoga? No, I'm a breathwork coach. You need to put yoga down there. Okay. Okay, here we see, all right, you're a sports therapist and you fix necks, backs, sports injuries. Da, 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 da. Okay, so you need to put physiotherapist. I'm not a physiotherapist. Can you stop thinking like a woman? He said. You need to understand that a woman will not say she can do something unless she's, no, this is exaggerating. She's got 10 years of experience and she's 500% sure she can do the job. You need to understand that when guys apply for this job, and I'm really sorry this is generalizing, but this is his words. If they think that they can do the job in 6 months, they'll say yes, they can do it. And I think that you have this weird, we've got this glass ceiling issue, women not seeing women in positions of leadership. We've got the blackguard, the blagging, women being over conscientious, perhaps. And so again, it's a complex issue. It's just not black and white, and it's so broad. There's so many reasons why women have not made it through that glass ceiling yet. But I'm really pleased that I got a picture from Simon Bly Sensei. They had a woman on their black belt grading panel recently, and I'm sorry that traditional martial arts is so, the Shotokan side is so like this, but it's got to change. It has to. There is the Discrimination Act. It's in place in countries all over the world. And it only takes for one person to realize there's an issue and take some association to court, and it may happen too late.
I've noticed in so my clubs before pandemic was about 70-30 female to men. So I always
Oh,
had
great.
more girls than boys.
Yeah.
After pandemic, it's 90-10 towards men. I think the women were more impacted by the pandemic. or I see more clubs just for women popping up with box exercise and stuff like that. And I can't figure out, we're struggling to get the women through the doors, which for my club, it's unusual because we had a overwhelming majority of women through since 2007 till the pandemic.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really strange. I know that there was I don't know if global is too dramatic a word. There was a global reassessment about what people want in their lives, right?
Mhm.
Um, and people have come out really behaving quite differently. In Sweden, we weren't so affected by it. That's where I was at that time. The last year, we had to go into a sort of, not lockdown, but clubs had to shut. I did notice working in clinic that people, so suppose there was a medical history of diabetes, for example. Let's suppose
Mhm.
this is just an example. The women that I treated suddenly got it. So it was almost like the sicknesses that sort of possibly in their family, a lot of people got quickly, much quicker. Something happened physically during that period. And I'm wondering why. Have you had thoughts as to why that might be? What have you haven't been able to figure it out?
I think I couldn't figure it out. I think it's above my grade with my little
Yeah,
brain. But to contrary, for example, my meditation class is we've got 14 plus 16. Well, for about 40 people, we've got two men. So
right,
the
right,
age bracket suddenly everything changed. So more active
right,
people, men in our club up to about 50.
right.
From the 60 up is complete change.
I
I'm
do
trying
think
to do.
there's there's a lot more I have put an article out also that argues the case for women's only classes. And I think that I think people are less tolerant of doing things, um, putting up with things now. And
Mhm,
I don't mean that like people have got soft. They haven't. I think the pandemic really made people reassess what they want out of life and what they want to do. It could have been this is total maybe that women were allowed to take 2 years off, sort of, maybe, I don't know.
mhm.
Tuning into more of what they want to do with their lives. And that probably doesn't include getting thrown around or beaten up's totally the wrong word, but just taking impact on the arms and the
Yeah,
legs
yeah.
and um people making very different decisions about what they want to do. I had one woman when I threw out the idea of having a women's only club here.
Mhm.
And one lady came along, we had a conversation beforehand, and she'd turned up to a club in Yeovil, and it was all men. And she was already a black belt from years before, but she wanted to start again. And the thing that stuck in my mind that she said is like, I just don't want to have that experience anymore. Why would I? Why
Mhm.
would I want to pair up against somebody much bigger than myself, be thrown around? And really well, as we've kind of touched on, the sort of patriarchal system, the traditional martial arts is, it's a system built by men for men. And women are just like, nah, I don't have to, I don't want to. That's a possibility as well. I don't understand. Do you feel, because I have only been back a couple of years, that living in the UK physically used to feel a little bit dangerous in terms of like there was a sort of threat. It might be, I was out of the country for 20 years, so I don't know. It's certainly not in the area where I live now. Is there less of a physical threat? Or have people calmed down, or have you got any thoughts about that?
I see actually completely opposite. Since Brexit, I see more people being justifying their rude behavior towards foreigners like myself. and so on. So I see quite opposite. I see more rise of knife crimes and stuff like that. That's why we're trying to do the seminars for against knife crimes,
Yeah.
which we're struggling to get funding because the founders say you don't explain clearly what the benefits to society will be. Not
Uh,
dying, one, but hey ho,
my,
that's the completely different topic of the struggles for what I do. But
it's
I don't know
crazy.
what. So I think it is as well. Um,
Mm,
how you portray your club and your club culture. We never had a complaint from any woman who came in that they've been mistreated or have been treated roughly. But I do adjust to everybody, and people do different things. Um, so, for example, like last couple of weeks, we had a lady who decided after she's about 50 years old, she decided she always wanted to do karate and looked on our page, and she said that she was feeling
mm,
the warmth from the website. I don't know if you can, but
mm.
she had some good vibes, so she came in and tried. And she came in on a day where it was just men, and she said she's going to be. Unfortunately, she managed to injure herself, not of our fault. She
Oh,
stepped on a mat and her toe caught,
uh,
and she stepped on her own toe.
the
So, but
mat.
didn't put her. That didn't put her off, but she's going to be back, I think, next
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
But she said that the atmosphere is very welcoming. She never felt threatened. She felt comfortable with us, maybe because I'm not threatening small person.
Mm,
And my approach is to start the conversation with showing vulnerability.
yeah,
So I say
yeah.
that I had a mental health problem. I'm recovering. I do that. We've got injuries. Everybody's relaxed and stuff like that. And I mentioned that the problem for men in a dojo is that it doesn't matter how hard we try to attract women into the club, if
Yeah.
that one doesn't turn up, then it's nearly impossible for us to get more women in.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. I want to actually like throw this back at you being a guy as well. This is so cool what I witnessed. So it was one of the first tests in Sweden to have a man-only class and a women-only class,
Mhm.
and it was really quite controversial, especially in women for the women in Sweden because we don't need that and blah 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 blah, and women are worse. Uh, Yes, women are very difficult when it comes to women supporting women as well in this situation, especially the ones that have been there for years in the martial arts world. They don't understand what the problem is. Well, yeah, they wouldn't because they've stuck it out and it doesn't bother them. But there's a whole bunch of more women that could come through if the women were more supportive to a bit broader range of women. But that being said, that's a whole other discussion that Yanti and I battled with for about a year till we decided what to do about it, and how to proceed with this issue. Because women not supporting women is even more difficult and poisonous than not getting support from the guys. Now, I had the privilege to witness Amos Sensei teaching a men only class. And it was one of the most empowering, best things I've seen for men ever. Zero apology, all in, loud, clashing, powerful, kind of like lots of noise and really um, going for each other as they would as men. They had a fantastic training session, and in a way, I've never seen guys being able to express themselves.
Mhm.
This was really great. And then the women's class was really great as well. Really interesting to have the size and yeah, the height and the body weight being very similar to my own. So I didn't have to overpower anything. But obviously, being paired up with guys for years, I am too powerful for women a little bit. So I have to tone it right back. But recently what I've said to my chaps, because my club here now is only a couple of years old, so very low grades. I was like, listen now, kids, ladies, over there, the guys are going to pair up together. They are allowed to express themselves. I want zero judgment from you. Lily, that's not your dad. That's a guy training with other guys now, and they're going to be and loud and as hard and as difficult with each other as they want to be. got the guys to go, oh, okay. It was a great agreement. They could just express themselves, and for everybody else to leave them alone, the women and the children, leave them alone, let them do their thing, let them express themselves. Because the reason I want this to happen for men as well is that, with my health and wellbeing research in Sweden, is that the level of suicide for men in Sweden is it's out of control, man. And to see guys um not allowed to be guys, how I would sort of feel naturally to be able to express themselves, like at school, no physical contact, no roughing and tumbling, which I think is a natural laddie thing. I found that a bit distressing, right? So I also think that there's not just a place for women's classes only, there's really a place for men only classes where they can really be loud and express themselves in a way that they want without fear of judgment from the women and children in the room. So I'm not quite sure, like what to do with this. And just to say it's totally okay for everybody to be okay, but when there's mixed classes, that's very difficult to do, but it's still okay. Women benefit more from mixed classes because it's probably a guy that's going to attack us, but I'm really not sure how much men benefit from it. So I don't know if that's something that you've thought about or noticed, Les, yourself. I'd be curious to know your thoughts.
Well, on your men change behavior in front of the women, and I can give you example because I was watching, because I don't drink. I observe a lot when we're going. So I'm part of the new BJJ club, which is all lads, pretty much all lads, right? So it happened. We went for a Christmas carry, just the lads. Conversation are very rude. Everybody picking on everybody. Guys thing. Then one
Yeah.
of the guys' wife come in. Suddenly, everybody's well behaved. No foul language. No rude jokes. Everybody's polite. How are you? And this stuff. So, but if we've got a man-only club, it's
Mm.
portrayed like, well, it's sexist. You're not inviting women. It's it's different space that might be upsetting some people, but the two groups got a completely different mindset and behaviors, right? The thing we say between men and having rude jokes, we know it's only jokes. But
Mm.
when women hear it, it's like, oh, did you hear that? That's sexist. That's this.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh,
that's our brains, right? We are geared very differently than
yeah,
women. But
yeah.
as you said, um, in our karate, we do a lot of groundwork, a lot of compromise positions. So when
Mm.
women come into our class, we give them a choice, right? That's what we
Mm.
do. This is gonna be the benefit for you.
Mm.
Probably you're gonna be attacked by a man, like you said. So
Hmm.
that gives you the getting used to a situation like that in a safe environment
Mm.
stops you from panic when it happens, right? If
Yeah, yeah,
I've got three women now training with us, so I
yeah.
usually pair them with them. If they want to train with men, fine.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
But the step up is to be challenged that if you're gonna start being comfortable with little things, then we can push the barrier, and then your confidence is gonna grow because the
Mm.
thing that in reality gonna be very scary might be a less scary, and you've got a more of a chance.
Mm.
But
Agreed.
we're trying to accommodate everybody, and
Mm.
well, there's gonna be a rude humor. I always ask on the first session, how are you with the swear words, right? If people say okay, I say okay. Then our one rule is just don't be a dickhead,
Right,
right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And you'll be
Yeah,
all right.
it's really I do feel that the conversation is so one-sided away from what men need in martial arts, what women need. All we've got to do is bring consciousness, sound reason, to it without any of the other stuff. Men need to be with men. I was a physio for well, the sports therapist for a football club for a season, and it was amazing. So I had to be in their changing rooms, which of course was a bit difficult the first session, but by the second session it was men being men, and the air was blue, and it was
Mhm.
fabulous to see the guys. just being guys without having, to feel that they couldn't express themselves in the way that they do. And they don't mean anything by it at all. It's not disrespectful. It's exactly as you say. It's just guys being guys. Last night, I saw it in our street. I was walking down the street and I really felt sorry for this young chap. There's three chaps talking really loudly, having a really big conversation. And this young chap had to walk through the center of them. And the guys carried on, and I saw the young chap's pace quickening, and he obviously felt really uncomfortable, but he managed to sort of keep his earplugs in and just go through them because they didn't clear the pavement.
Mm.
But then I came to the situation, they stepped off the pavement into the road, all of them, to let me go past. And I was like, okay, that's just weird. Okay, it's not weird. It's very nice as a woman to experience this level of respect and courtesy. But the poor young guy that had to walk through that crowd, I really felt for him. He had purple hair and he was obviously looking nice in his clothes and of a different type, and they were just being rowdy bastards. And it's like, well, it's if we're going to, I don't know what the statistics are in the UK. As I said, in Sweden, it's terrible for male suicides. And now we have men's clubs, not necessarily karate clubs, but like there's a male
On
qigong
Demands
club.
Club and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, mental health clubs where men can be together, where men may come together and apologize. And I really, really don't think men should come together and apologize, and
Mm.
apologize. We just need to be aware that there's a difference. We process differently, we think differently with slightly different values, but then we come together to create life and something much more bigger and
Mm.
beautiful than separate situations. So there's some there's we I think conversations, education, people just saying, men saying, okay, women, we hear you, but we have this whole other conversation that women aren't even allowed to be women anymore, let's say, but we need to allow everybody the space to be who they naturally are. And I do sense that men are apologizing a little bit for the history of men's behavior. And I can only go on for so long. And at the same time, I want men in the martial arts world to make sure women are on grading panels. I want them to make sure they're in EC as a decision maker, not someone at the side making all these suggestions. Because what you have to remember with women, you that I think they tend to see a very, very big picture, broad and quite far-reaching implications, and men tend to have a slightly different perception. And I think it's to do with the some innate caring thing, women, maybe just an inbuilt thing. So I think any association or club or board that has women on it and men is just going to be so much better. And if we're talking about martial arts associations, they're going to grow and really flourish under both ways of doing things.
And I think just you said about different frame of looking at things. I think the best example is I've recently seen it or read somewhere that the best example of different mindset and different priorities is having a baby. So you've got the baby, the woman wakes up to the cry, usually man sleeps through.
Yeah.
But when there is a noise outside, woman will sleep through and man will be up, right? We're
Right.
geared to protect, women nurture.
Right.
So I think that's our completely different point of views.
Yeah.
We are here as men, we
Yeah.
here, we protect, we do
Mm,
stuff.
mm,
Women
mm.
are here, we need to provide our child with the future. So you see
Yeah.
what's gonna happen in 5 steps. I see now, I need to fix this now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we're
so
hardwired in very different ways, and depending on the generation, uh, very different assumptions. If I take my lovely husband Peter, he's from an older generation, and for me, as the next generation, that's really hard to handle. And coming from a household where women ran the household, we're all entrepreneurs and artists and running our own businesses, and I wanted a guy in my life that was not I didn't deliberately like go looking for a guy like this, but somebody that was more manly. And
Mhm.
he is, but there are real household problems with that when it comes to just running a household. But then and it's not to do with, it's to do with hard wiring and assumptions about what women do, what men do, what he's done his entire life, which is go out to work, and the women have normally been at home. I'm a total entrepreneur. I love running 5 or 6 projects at the same time, but I homeschool. I try and run the household, but clearly the lads don't give a shit, so I'm not sure why I should, you know. So I'm trying to strike a balance there, which is very funny, and I try not to complain. Um, but then my boys now, so my eldest is 28, and he's a record producer, mixing and mastering, and he runs 3 record labels. When I tell him about the problem, yeah, he's hardcore. It's amazing. He's into tech. He's a techno music guy, and yeah, been very, very ill. And then during that period where he was at home with me, he just built the business basically, because that's what he could do, even if he was lying in bed on days. It's total soldier, but he's brought up by a martial arts mum and he's got that
Mm.
mindset himself. And when I told him the problem that women are experiencing, uh, he said, I can't believe we're having this conversation. So he is, sorry if these terms are unpopular. He is a white male English lad,
Mhm.
and he for years struggled to get gigs because of his sexual orientation and the fact that he was white. And for him, it's completely the opposite issue that we're talking about. So depending on the context, depending on what we're going to experience in terms of discrimination. But my boys is another generation, and my youngest is so sensitive that if we watch movies from the 80s, he basically complains all the way through about how women are treated and the language that they're using on women. I was like, it's a different time. Just relax. It's going to be okay. We don't. But it's disgusting, Mum. Like, how can they possibly talk to women like that? So everybody, they're really shifting in mindset about this whole issue, and us oldies just have to wait it out. And in sort of 10, 5, 10, 20 years, there'll be none of these conversations going on. There'll be other conversation, other problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, for me it was difficult because when we decided a family, my wife got a much better job than I had,
Mm.
so I quit the job to become a house husband.
Yeah.
Um, so my job was keeping the household and she was working, and it's
Yeah.
pretty similar problems arising, right? It's just like, "Oh, why are you working so much? You're never with kids," and stuff like that from my side. But
Mm.
then, as well, relying on a woman bringing money, it took me a long time to kind of share that in because we're geared to be providers and stuff like that. So that was a difficult part.
Mm.
That's gonna be
Mm.
in my future book as well. And it's just the world is not geared for fathers to go. When you go as a woman with a kiddo, you've got the changing rooms in the toilets. If you're a man, you have to change the kid on the dirty floor, which I don't want to
Oh,
do because there's no now it's changing. But when 8 years ago you went to National Trust and there's nothing, no changing rooms for a fathers to change the baby. We
whoa.
can't go to the woman's toilet because you the pervert, and so
Yeah.
deal with
Yeah.
that.
That's really rough. And I think that so when I moved to Sweden in 2005, all that good stuff that was needed was
Mm.
all sorted out. Really amazing. And I was so shocked when I went into a swimming's changing rooms, as you mentioned it, for the first time, where everybody was in there changing, but you had cubicles and nobody wore their shoes in there. Everything was clean because what you had, or what you have in Sweden is mamma and papa ledig, which means when the child is born, the mother can take 6 months with the child,
Father as
as long
well.
as they have a contract job, and so can the guy. So if you're going to have that set up in place, you've got to have changing rooms set up where the
Mm.
guys can be. So all that stuff is sorted out, which makes Sweden sound absolutely idyllic. I swear it isn't, and there's a reason why I'm not there, but that's for
Mm.
we can have a Coca-Cola sometime together and have a conversation about that situation. It's not ideal, but that level of humanity, and it's just basic service, basic humane behavior towards families, children, and just parents, not
Mm.
dad or mum, as a parent, was really shock. It was like a culture shock, but such a nice one to experience. And there is a lot of work to do, but we're low on resources, and I don't see how it's going to happen in this country, that sort of thing fast. But the changing room here was, and this is interesting, at our local centre was built by a charity. It wasn't built by the
Mhm.
county council, and it was built 20 years ago. And it's mixed changing rooms, all cubicles. None of the men's male female changing room issues are in place, except
Mm.
if you go to the gym. You know, that's a slightly different thing.
For UK and changing rooms, it's very bizarre for me because in Poland, if you've got sports, you must have a showers and changing room. In UK, you just go to the church and everybody changes inside in the thing or comes already changed.
Yeah.
I can't understand that.
No, no, I've been spoiled as well, being in Europe. Um, it's really disgusting. I was on a training camp recently, and it was a 10 till 4 training with 5 minute water break in the morning, quarter of an hour lunch break, and then a grading for a couple of hours afterwards, which was my choice to go to. But in this gym, which was a jiu-jitsu gym, the women's changing room was in a toilet. And there were no showers. And then I had a 6 to 7 hour drive to do afterwards. And I
Mm,
was in my gear. And I just like, oh, welcome to the UK, man. Uh,
mm,
what? Nowhere to change as a woman, and I had to get changed in the toilets. And then there was nowhere to wash afterwards, so I had to just go home in my goo. It
mm.
was obviously
Yeah,
pretty good.
our gym we are very ahead of time. We've got a uh, mixed changing room. It's
Yeah.
currently being built, so we've got a transparent walls. So you know,
Mm,
just
yeah.
but we've got a separate room for the women to go in, and we've got a shower which pretty much none of the English people use.
I find it extraordinary. I mean, I was used to as a child, obviously practicing in school halls. Then with the Aikido club, we were at the sports centre, so it was absolutely fab. We could
Mm,
have really, really hot showers afterwards, and it didn't cost anything. So that was spoiled. And then in Sweden, all the facilities are the best. Just
mm,
and a lot of empty school gym areas. So we ended up being able to have our own dojo, which we shared with the boxing club, community sort of funded by the commune, by the county council, the town council, I should say, with showers and just everything we needed. And then coming home, a massive culture shock about this whole issue, and it really surprises me because. I want to shower and change afterwards. I and I don't want to I don't want to go there in my dogie necessarily, although I do now proudly walk through town as an advertisement that there's a karate club. I carry all the kit and I have all my dogie on and my black belt on, and I don't care. And I wander through town, and maybe
mm.
I'll pick up some new club members.
I still can't do it. I'm here in UK 17 years. I still can't do it. In Poland, it's not acceptable to go to work in the same clothing, go to training in the same clothing. It's just not. So I really struggle with that. I just no, I need to change.
It's it's quite. I think Europe is very it's different in some nice ways. Um, and yeah, and things like that is definitely one of them. This assumption about where you've got to get changed and cleaning yourself up afterwards. I'm constantly surprised. But again, I think the facilities here got really lucky because they were built by charities.
Mm,
So where we decide we just about make the rent each month. The club is very small, but we just cover the rent. And they give us an extra half hour.
mm.
We got really lucky because it's the cricket club and rugby club facility as well. So we have changing rooms and showers downstairs as well, which they've just put locks on the doors. But that's another thing. I only found that out last week, so no one can shower again. But I got really lucky with these facilities, and my dream is definitely to have my own dedicated, health and well-being facility that houses yoga, tai chi, qigong, karate, various styles of karate, treatment rooms with proper
Hmm.
changing facilities and kitchen areas. And you know how it is with the kids club. Um, if there's a coffee and tea facility or a supermarket nearby,
Yeah.
the kids club tends to be quite big. If there
Mm.
isn't, it's very difficult to maintain that. So I think facilities are
Yeah.
actually super important. It's got to be a good experience, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my dream is very similar to have our own space and run it like a community club. We used to have that in Poland. So
Mm,
I'm
mm.
trying to hear, but unfortunately the UK government is not very pro things like that. So
No, it's very strange, and I think the only way is to come together with let's say as a martial arts school owner, move into real estate and be businesslike about it.
hmm
I think that the facility as my dream facility would be so much better with treatment rooms and, as I say, other martial arts going on in there.
hmm
It would be much bigger and better with a group, but I would have to be, yeah, the real estate owner, I think, in some way.
yeah,
And then actually the rent is not such a big problem for everybody if we share our spaces.
hmm
I think it just needs somebody with a bit of a business mind to get it together and some initial capital so that the facility could be rented out all day and be
hmm
perfect for everybody. I think yoga and Tai Chi, yeah, they would use a space in the morning, maybe even fitness classes, and then martial arts classes
yeah.
would tend to move in the evening or maybe early morning and at the weekend. So let's do it.
What's the future for the magazines? What's your plans to grow the magazine, and how was the initial response from the different various groups of martial artists?
Mm-mm. Well, I first of all, in terms of the response, it's been just like crazy positive because we're actually covering subjects and issues and celebrating. We're actually celebrating people, which doesn't normally get done. That's not a trendy thing to do, even in the dojo when you're training with sensei. It's like you're not often congratulated on doing something really good. The
Mm,
sensei usually sees all the problems, which is a bit disheartening. I'm not like that. I mean, if I've asked for a change and someone's managed to do it like that, I make a big fuss with positive
mm,
reinforcement. And I think that the response has been incredible. I mean, um, and I think that's because I didn't clamp it down. I didn't try and control anything. I just said, here we are, here's the space, you come and send me your articles, send me the stories that you want to hear. I've been asked to not, to definitely don't keep politics out of it. And I think that that's correct because there's things going on in politics which are actually abusive. And the bully abuses because it's not in public, right? And I think some of the things that have come in that we've put out, the people that we're talking about and the associations that I've had letters to the editor about, they know it's
mhm,
them. And so even if I haven't been able to legally, just to protect myself and the people writing the articles, name names because we can be sued, they know that we know. They know that somebody else knows outside of this little area. And that's also how to gradually stop bullying. And it would only take one crazy ass person on an angry day to press a button and make it very, very public that it could go public. And if someone pushes me, I will go public with this stuff and I don't care. But if we're protecting people for the time being, we don't have to name names. So this has been a big one.
mhm,
We're not going to keep politics out of it. We will be careful. But I think just Yanti was saying, about some of her dojo dilemmas, which started as a why don't we have like a coffee corner, Kate's coffee corner or something where we talk about issues that go on in the dojo that you can't normally speak to your sensei about, to your head of the association, but are genuine problems that always come up and don't get discussed. So the Dojo Dilemmas has been great, but in terms of a response, we also now know that the people reading them will go, "Oh, is that me that they're talking about? Do I do that? Maybe I should regulate myself a little bit better." The classes, maybe I should check myself how I'm standing in class and listening or not listening. So that has been a great response. Um, we're very encouraged by the number of people that have signed up for the summer camp. I think that's a response because
Mhm.
there are two women leaders that are coming forward and don't care. They're just like, we're deeply respectful. My mentors are men. It just happens to work out that way. But there aren't any strong women mentors yet.
Mhm.
Yanti and I are, batting at each other all the time. So I think that that's been a really positive response. I think that as I said just now, the fact that we're celebrating achievements and these tiny little stories, the girls saying, "I love having a place where I can express myself just by shouting. It makes me feel empowered and creative." It's like we know this as instructors, like we know it. We've seen it for years, but it's written down on paper now and people are reading it. So we've only got to get Budo mindset, say, in the hands of a school. So school could say, well, what are the benefits? Oh, read journeys on Budo mindset. You'll soon understand the benefits. Go and have a look at the blog page. Go and have a look at health and well-being if you want to see what martial arts does for people. So there's this side effect that will start happening, like we're gathering resources for people that are trying to move forward into a certain space to argue their case of why martial arts is
Mhm.
so good for them. And my stuff is all based on actual research, where I had access to the deep research facilities through the university. So this is amazing. Um, I think that I've enjoyed personally having a voice for the things I want to talk about in martial arts, which is particularly a total lack of interest in health and well-being, where it's like, well, okay, if you want to carry on training martial arts, hadn't you better take care of yourself? This page is really important for you, people that are doing it a long time. These are the things you've got to take care of. So there's that aspect. And then, well, as you know, this week, today, I'm pushing the first Budo Mindset going to print as an actual paper magazine,
Mhm.
which is super exciting. This is not going to be, it's happening every 4 months. This is going to be when we have enough strong articles that are really relevant, then the magazine will come together and be published. And so it's
Mhm.
going to be done like that. I'm not going to put myself under that level of pressure. And I think it will lower the quality of the magazine if I say oh, it's going to be out every month, 3 months or 4 months. No, 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 no. This has got to be when it's matured and ready. So this it might not happen for another 6 months. I doubt it. I think it'll be more than that because we've already got like a few good articles that I think should be in the next one. Now in terms of low hanging fruit, so most of the articles at the moment are from karate people, but that's simply because it's my algorithm in terms of my network
Mhm.
through Facebook. But I want articles from every single martial art, everything. So my next stage is to find them. I want articles from Aikido people because they think very differently to karate people.
Mhm.
Just an example, and they tend to be more intellectual, but on my algorithms at Facebook, it's like, did you know that your posts with photographs get it's between 600% and 700% more views than other posts of this nature, this subject? And it's because it's photographs. I'm pretty sure karate people
Mhm.
specifically tend to be visually orientated and they want to see stuff. So I want the intellectuals in there as well. And I want the ground people. I want everybody I can. So it's an open forum. So now the next stage is to get other types, a much broader range of martial arts in there. That's my aim. Obviously, to press the button on send to go to print today. We've had I haven't checked the stats for 2 days, but we had orders for about 120 magazines so
Oh, cool.
far. This is great. I'm going to order. I think there's a lot of people that haven't ordered, so I'm going to order more. So there will be some. But this then, and this is what's really exciting for me. Once this first load is done manually, it's going to go on Amazon, print on demand, so it will be available forever,
Cool.
all over the world, not just the UK. So then it's accessibility. It will have to cost more just because of way how much it costs to do print on demand, but it means it's always there. So there's some pretty special interviews going on in this one that are rare. I mean, Amos Sensei, um, he doesn't really give interviews. We've got Scott Middleton who doesn't really give interviews. So it's got stuff in there that's really unique for this special edition. So yeah, that's sort of now and the future. And anybody watching this that any martial art goes. I just happen to be a karate person, but I wouldn't be the karate person if I hadn't done capoeira for a couple of years, if I hadn't done 4 or 5 years of iron shirt qigong and 8 years of qigong in the forest, and I certainly wouldn't have had my mind blown if I hadn't done aikido for 10 years. And I want to hear from everybody. So if anyone's watching this, please get in touch and have your say.
Where people can find you.
Yeah, they just come to budomindset.com. That's the web page, and you'll see a contact form on there somewhere. Find us on Facebook, Budo Mindset Magazine, or Instagram, and you'll find me. I think my Facebook is private simply because I kind of want to get to know a little bit who's coming in. And
Yeah.
as a woman, you have to be really, really careful as well. I've had some terrible experiences, so I tend to monitor that. But certainly through the normal pages, come and find me or send me a request, and I'll check out your profile just for my own safety's sake. And if it's safe to hook up that way, then I, of course, will. But through Budo Mindset magazine is easy.
Francesca, it was pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. And I
Thank you.
hope that your magazine only going to be growing to take over.
I hope so. And please, Sensei, send me some articles in. Whenever you're inspired, send me something. And obviously, we want to hear about your book, your new book coming up, and anything about your work that you're doing or any thoughts. Just flood me with articles so that we've got different perspectives and different voices on anything that you feel is relevant to the martial arts community. Just send it to me and we'll get it up there. And then obviously, I really want to push the things that you've put together with your toolboxes and the work that you're doing. I mean, the community need to keep hearing it over and over and over again. And we do get some surprising responses. And it's like one time is not enough. I think it's got to be a minimum of 10. And then the
Mm,
message starts to get through. So please make sure you send me some work soon again, okay?
I will.
All
Thank you.
right. Of course. Thank you. Thank you, Les. See you soon.